It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White is here as well. Final show for 2023 here this year. We're happy to be with you. Good morning.
Good morning. We have an opportunity to finish the year strong here today with Week 17.
Well, we'll finish the way in one way or another, Alex.
That's right.
We'll see how it plays out today in a very unbalanced NFL schedule. After last night, where once again the Zebras were the talk of the game last night, Dallas wins 20-19. Game goes way under. Cowboys survive 3 2-point conversion attempts from the Lions. The first one pretty clearly incorrectly ruled an illegal touching by Brad Allen and his crew, just calling out the wrong number of who was supposed to be eligible. Taylor Decker reported. Allen called out Dan Skipper, number 70, for whatever reason, and wiped that one out. Detroit, for whatever reason, went forward for 2 from the 7. Dallas got called for a penalty, got it from the 3, did not score from the 3, and that's that. Dallas wins. Detroit cannot get the 1 seed now unless if some real weird stuff happens. I would take Philly losing as a big favorite twice and the Niners losing twice as big favorites the next 2 weeks. So Detroit's pretty much locked into that 3 now, because if Philly loses once, Dallas would hop them. And Dallas, of course, now has a head-to-head tiebreaker over the Detroit Lions. Lions and Cowboys both at 11-5. All right, let's get into today. For whatever reason, we have 10 games at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Why the league scheduled it that way, I do not know. And do not care to ask why they did that way. But let's start. We'll go in a rotation number order, and we start with the big game of the day, the number 1 seed in the AFC and the best record in the National Football League, the Baltimore Ravens, hosting the Miami Dolphins, who finally beat a good team last week. And Alex, if the Miami Dolphins win out, the AFC playoffs would go through South Beach. Miami would get the 1 seed. They would take it from Baltimore, win it on the virtue of head-to-head record. If the Ravens win today, the race for the number 1 seed in the AFC is over. Baltimore would clinch it, and Baltimore could basically rest everyone for 2 weeks if they wanted to. They did, remember in 2019, similar spot. They actually played Pittsburgh that final week of the year. It was Duck Hodges and today's starter Mason Rudolph for that Steeler team. Robert Griffin III won that game outright with the Baltimore backups to go 14-2 that year, eliminate Pittsburgh for good. We know the Ravens, of course, lost in the divisional round to Tennessee and Derrick Henry back in 2019. But for today, the Dolphins, with a win, also would win their first AFC title since Chad Pennington was the quarterback there in 2008, the last time the Dolphins won the East. Alex, it's 3. It was 3.5 for a good chunk of the week, back to 3 right now. Baltimore laying it. 46.5 your total here.
I think 3 is the right number. I haven't done anything here. I do lean to the Ravens with Waddle being out and Mostert. I think that will affect their offense and even Tyreek Hill, because Waddle does do a good job of taking some of the defenders off of Tyreek. But yeah, I didn't play anything. I was also looking at the over first half, 23.5. But after yesterday with those two, the Lions and the Cowboys, we had 2 red zone interceptions that definitely affected that total. But so I'm going to stay off of this one. What a great game, though. I'm excited to watch this one. Lean to the Ravens. I just think 3 is the right number, and Dolphins could definitely cover this.
I'm going to stay out of this game. Now, it's weird to say after Baltimore went to San Francisco and won convincingly. Now, the Niners did average almost 7 yards a play in that game. Baltimore won the turnover battle. I get it. But I'm in the camp here still where I am not fully on board with this Raven team. Now, I could be not fully on board and they're lifting the Lombardi in 6 weeks. But, hey, I've been stubborn in the past and I'll be stubborn again down the line, Alex. But you're not going to have a +5 turnover differential in this game. It's just not going to happen. And I just wonder where it was really self-inflicted wounds by the Niners last week. The last interception, whatever, Darnold was trying to make a play on 4th and goal from the 17-yard line. That one was, whatever. That's not really a turnover. That was going back to Baltimore anyway. Purdy had, of the 4 picks last week, one of them was really bad. The one on the first interception was really bad. The other ones were deflected balls. Now, granted, I think the second one was on 100% his fault. You can't make that throw. And then Baltimore just got the batted ball to the right spot. But again, these Ravens, who have led or been tied in the last 2 minutes of all 15 of their games, Miami presents an interesting challenge for them. Jalen Waddle won't play, though. He is hurt. He suffered that injury early in the game against Dallas last week, never returned. This is a different test trying to cover Tyreek Hill. And this is a different look, Tyreek Hill, because of the ankle injury he suffered 3 weeks ago. I would have only bet this thing at 3.5 on Miami. I'm going to stay out of it. We're going to wait in game, see if Baltimore gets out to the league, get a better number with Miami. But I wouldn't discount the Dolphins' chances in this game. Really wouldn't.
Do you think this is the decision maker for the MVP?
Okay, now that's a good question. So Lamar Jackson's the betting favorite basically everywhere. The trend this year has been, once you've been crowned the MVP for the year, you come out your next game and have been dreadful. That has just been what it's been. Because when Dak was, hey, Dak's going to win the thing, it was awful the next week. Hey, Brock Purdy's going to win. What, minus 230, and now Purdy's 20-1 at some shops to win the MVP. I think that's a little bit of an overreaction too. But again, reactionary market, the awards markets, especially the MVP one. So,
as someone who's holding a Lamar Jackson ticket, I hope you are incorrect with this.
If Baltimore wins today, Lamar's got it. He's going to win. Even if Lamar doesn't play well, if Baltimore finds a way to win, he's good. The interesting one is if Miami wins, who does everyone gravitate towards?
Right.
Do they gravitate towards Tyreek Hill, which would be the way I would gravitate, or because the voters are very QB happy with this award, as we know, do they gravitate to Tua Tagovailoa? Now, what this all sets up for, and I said this to Vinny earlier in the week, is that Lamar doesn't play well, Miami wins, Tua becomes the betting favorite to be the MVP, Buffalo goes over the top of them, beats them next week, wins the division, and Josh Allen steals the MVP.
There we go.
That's where this is all heading. At least, again, just to torture me even further. But that's where that's heading. And it's where it feels like it's heading, at least. Potentially. Again, I lean Miami in this game, but not strong enough, especially at the worst number, to play it. Hey, speaking about the Bills, there's just one-way traffic on the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
Just remember, no one circles the wagons like them. Up to 15 behind us on this one against New England. Now, remember, this is a convoluted one here, where Buffalo, of course, part of the reason they are in this position is because of that 29-25 loss earlier in the year in Foxborough. And Buffalo last week, it was a retrospect, Alex, it was a horrible spot for them. It really was. Short week, cross-country travel. Chargers get on the extended rest, get the bump because they fired the coach. Bills were lucky to win the game, but they did. That's all you needed to do in that spot. Just don't lose. And now you return home against a team that already beat you that we know stinks. I will say this, though. Now that we're through the 2 touchdowns, it's pretty hard to look at that with the way New England has played the last few weeks where their offense has started to look like an NFL offense again. It's hard to pass that up. It's kind of one of those where it's like, all right, you know what? Buffalo, go out, beat me by 20 points. So be it. Tip my hat, move to the next bet, Alex. I'm going to be on New England. I'm just going to see if we get even further than the 15 behind us.
That's funny because I wanted to get your opinion. You do talk me through some things. So I teased the Bills down early in the week. I got them -6. They are locked up with the Eagles at -4.5.
You got good numbers on both of those.
Good numbers there. But now I'm very tempted to go back on the other side. Patriots +15 here. And you're right. Since Bailey Zappi has got the start, they're averaging 21.5 points per game in their last 3 games. He's averaged 225 yards and had 6 touchdown passes in those 3 games. So as you mentioned, they look like an NFL offense again. So looking here at grabbing the 15 with the Patriots and possibly the Cardinals, but we'll get to that game later.
I also don't mind that. I know this is going to be backwards for the way both of these teams have played. I kind of like this game over as well. And New England's defense has obviously, they had the stretch where they gave up 10 or less and lost all 3. It's pretty clear now that was all Mac Jones more than anything. I don't mind this game over if you can get that. There are some flat 40s still out there. I would have looked at get the best number possible and go ahead over. The weather in Buffalo today, because there are some weather games today, it is not bad at all today for the final day of the year. You take 35 degrees with no wind in Buffalo on the last of the year. So it's pretty good, all things considered, especially, of course, as we've seen in this rivalry, some wacky weather games, including that one 2 years ago where New England attempted 3 forward passes because of the wind on that Monday night against the Bills where the Patriots won.
To your point with the over, too, I mean, the Bills have been coming out very strong in their last 5 games. They've put up at least 14. And even last week where they had a very slow start in Los Angeles, they still managed to put 2 touchdowns on the board before the halftime. So
I mean, again, since the offensive coordinator changed, they're a good throw from Josh Allen in overtime in Philadelphia from being 5-0 since they went from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady. Again, I thought it was a scapegoating. It pretty clearly is not been a scapegoating because that offense has looked significantly, I don't want to say significantly better, but it's been more composed. It's been better coordinated since Joe Brady has taken over that slot. All right, there is some snow in Chicago today. Bears and Falcons. Not a lot. It shouldn't impact the game much. Bears are 3 behind us. It's 2.5 in the rest of the market with juice on the favorite in this game. All right, Alex. Are you doing it again with the Falcons? Are you going back to the well? Just saying, it's okay.
I've got the Falcons in a contest +3. Yes, I did it again. But I like the under in this game, too.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because we know Chicago's defense. I mean, they've played much better as of late. They're 6-1-1 to the under in their last 8 games. The Falcons averaging just 13.6 points on the road. They are 10-5 to the under this year. In their last 2 road games, they lost 9-7 to the Panthers, and then they beat the Jets 13-8. So I'm looking for them to keep it close. I do need them to cover that 3 as a contest pick, but my best play in this game is under 39.
Okay. That's interesting. I did not expect you to go that way on the total. And now I like the Falcons for one. I'm going to wait. Okay. I'm going to see if we get a slow start from Atlanta and try to get a better number out there. I do have a little 3 from earlier in the week, but I want to see if I can get a little more at a better number in game. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence. We talked about it. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Falcons won last week with Heineke playing and not Ritter. We know this. And the one thing I will give Atlanta, other than that game against Tampa, since the bye week, because they lost to Arizona before the bye week, that defense had played really well.
Yes.
And yes, you can look at the opponents and go, all right, it was Derek Carr, Tim Boyle, Bryce Young, and Gardner Minshew in the 4 games. Their defense looked really, really good. But you still got to go out and slow them down. This was a defense that was torched by Will Levis earlier in the season, and a defense that let Josh Dobbs, with no practice time, run all over him in that game against Minnesota. So, again, this Atlanta team, when Atlanta inevitably misses the playoffs here, Alex, they're going to look back at this season and basically say, how did we not win 11 games? And not win the NFC South going away and maybe even getting up to the 3 seed. Because their losses, some of these losses they have on their ledger this year. They lost at home to Washington. Horrible loss. They lost to Will Levis, making his first real-time action. Technically, Will has started that game. Bad loss. The Josh Dobbs game. Horrible loss. They lose to Kyler Murray in his first start back. Horrible loss. The way they lost to Tampa was really bad, allowing Tampa to go to length of the field with 1 timeout the last 90 seconds to beat them. And then the Carolina game is the worst loss that anyone's taken in the NFL this season.
And it's really interesting because the other 2 in their division, Tampa Bay, of course, leading that division, they're playing the Saints today. So if the Saints can knock off Tampa Bay, that makes that division just as interesting as it's been. So it is an important game for the Falcons here.
Yeah. If it's a 3-way tie, that's one scenario I didn't play out yet, where I'm going to have to play it out. But a 3-way tie, where, remember, Atlanta, if New Orleans wins, so here's the ridiculous thing. If New Orleans wins today, okay, you're going to like this one, Alex. If New Orleans wins today and Atlanta wins, Atlanta technically would hold the division lead going to the final week, but they would not control their own destiny.
Okay.
Because if Tampa wins week 18 against Carolina, a heads-up tie with Atlanta would go to Tampa after the week 18 game. So there you go.
And then they would need the Rams and the Seahawks.
They can't. Based off of what I
outright.
did earlier, I don't think Atlanta can win a tiebreaker against any of those teams at 9-8. They would have to. They would need Tampa. Their easiest path is they win out and Tampa loses
Right.
out. That's their easiest path to get there as a division champion, which would be very interesting if that happened. Let's keep it rolling here. Tennessee and Houston is next. As our guy Sean said back there, they're betting the Texans. Market low behind us on Houston at 4.5. There's even some 5.5 in the market now on the Texans against Tennessee. CJ Stroud is back. That's the real reason for this move. Alex,
Yep.
I think this is too aggressive. Now, I'm not saying Houston's going to go out and not win this game by a touchdown, but we're getting to the point now where we're really I know Houston won with Keenum 2 weeks ago in Nashville, but CJ Stroud's missed 2 weeks. The last time we saw CJ Stroud without Tank Dell, it was really, really ugly. I understand that Nico Collins got hurt early in that loss to the Jets for them, but it looked really bad for that Houston offense. And more importantly, and I've been saying this for about a month now, Houston's defense is awful. And they've shown it over the last month that their defense is terrible. I'm not sure. This total is also too low at 44 for me, Alex. So kind of like this game over. And if we get to 6 somehow on Tennessee, it's an automatic bet for me on the Titans. I don't think we get there.
See, I'm on the other side of that one. I think 44 is a little high for this one, mostly because of Tennessee. I mean, they've gone over a total of 44 only twice this year. Week 2 against the Chargers, and we know their offense, especially early in the season when they had Justin Herbert. And then just 3 weeks ago in the comeback win over Miami, which took a lot to get there. They're 10-5 to the under this year. I liked it a lot better when Will Levis wasn't in it, though, because Ryan Tannehill, more protects the ball more. He didn't have a great start last week, but Will Levis makes me nervous, takes a lot of shots, and does speed up that offense a little bit. But still, you mentioned about CJ Stroud. I do expect him to come out a little rusty and not having Tank Dell. So, yeah, I did play this under 44.
Under 44 for Alex on that one. Let's go to Indy and Vegas. So 2 years ago, remember, this was a similar matchup with a somewhat similar scenario where the Colts were a big favorite in that game. Yes, the Colts. I know the teams are totally different, especially Indianapolis. But the Raiders went on the road, pulled the upset, and flipped around and beat the Chargers week 18 to sneak into the playoffs. Indy ended up being left out in the cold because, as we remember, week 18, they had the epic disaster against Jacksonville as 16-point favorites on the road. Probably my favorite money line win of all time because I was all over Jacksonville. Figured Carson Wentz would choke, and he did. But now this go around, it's not Carson Wentz and Derek Carr. It's Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell in this one. It's 3.5. We did touch 4 for a little bit overnight. Back to the 3.5 now, which I think is right. Personally, I don't think it should have ever gotten through the 3.5. Total's 42.5. Alex, I don't know what to do with this game. I think we finally saw once and for all last week where I think everyone started to realize Minshew is what he is. He's a capable backup, but when he doesn't have it, he looks really awful. And he did not have it last week and looked dreadful against Atlanta. And the Raiders, the question for them is, how real is this defensive resurgence under Antonio Pierce? Where last week, they didn't complete a pass after the first quarter and won outright at Arrowhead, Alex.
Absolutely insane, that stat right there. But I do believe in this defense and under Antonio Pierce. They've been the difference maker. They have allowed just 5 offensive touchdowns the last 4 games. So points are a premium. I took the 3.5 with the Raiders here in this one. I think they can keep it close against the Colts.
Anything on a total?
No, nothing for me. I think that I made it 43, so I think that's just right there. I
really do think I really want to bet the Raiders here, but I understand it's a bad situational spot against them. Short week, coming off a game that moves their market value way up.
That's what scares me too. It's like a Super Bowl win for them.
So it's a little bit tough to go on that team after what happened on Monday. I just think Indy again played over, and I made this point with Chris on Friday. Same thing with Houston. I didn't make it earlier. I'll make it now, where you have two teams in the AFC South that had 6.5 win totals and have pretty average to mediocre rosters that are both 8-7 and squarely in this in Indy and Houston. Indy right now, the playoffs started today, would be the 7th seed. And they play each other next week, of course, naturally, to end the season. I just wonder when you have teams that have over exceeded their expectations so much, and we've seen the cracks with both of those teams the last few weeks, do you have anything left in the gas tank when it's already when we're basically on E? Do they have a chance to fill up? I'm not sure either team does.
I agree with you.
So, again, I'm not buying this full Raider resurgence. I'm not. If Antonio Pierce gets the job, you know what? Good for him. He deserves it. I don't know how that works out long term. I don't think it does. But, again, these AFC South, and this is honestly, the whole AFC playoff picture where I don't think there's a single good team in the bunch that's at 8-7 or worse right now that's technically still in the mix right now in the AFC. Hey, speaking of the AFC South, Carolina, Jacksonville, no Trevor Lawrence, first career game that he's not starting because of the shoulder injury he suffered last week in Tampa. So, C.J. Beathard, you're up in a game that Jacksonville has to have. This is obviously, Alex, if they miss the playoffs, this is just an epic melt job by the Jags, where they, just a month ago, were 10-point favorite at home against Cincinnati. They've lost 4 in a row. I understand 3 of those losses are the teams that are probably going to be in the playoffs. Definitely 2 in Cleveland and Baltimore. But you can't have this type of melt the way that has happened. And now you get Carolina, who, again, Panthers are the worst team in football. They're coming off their best offensive performance of the year by a wide margin last week, even in defeat against Green Bay. It's 3.5. I'm not taking anything here, but it is kind of at the point where it's like, all right, well, normal circumstance, probably 3.5, 4 from Lawrence to Beathard. That's what the market has done. Is that still good enough to possibly lay a shorter price on the Jags?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a little overreaction. I grabbed the 7 early in the week, and it's one of the rare times that, because the numbers came out before I'd finished upgrading my power ratings and had my numbers, but I saw that 7 with the Panthers, and I took it right away, not knowing what the status was with Lawrence. So, I mean, yeah, Bryce Young, I'm happy for him. 22 of 36 with 312 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against the Packers. So, hoping the Panthers can keep it going. They also aren't in this tank conversation, right? They don't get the first pick no matter what. So
they're just losing because they're bad.
Exactly. So they're going to put it all out there today. The Jags, I'm really worried about them. You talked about it. I mean, this will be the worst if they don't make the playoffs here. And they're giving up the 4th most passing yards in the league at 257 a game. So I wouldn't feel strongly about laying the 3.5, but I do think that that's a big adjustment, and you might be safer taking the Jags there than just 3.5 with this Panthers team.
If they win this week, they're in really good shape.
Yes, they are.
Because they would, even though they're on the road the final week of the season, they'll be road favorites at the Titans.
I mean, they put themselves in a good position at this point, right?
I mean, they put themselves in a good position earlier in the year.
Exactly.
I mean, they're fortunate. By the way, the entire AFC South, all with negative point differentials. Even though all those teams are over 500, that division has been every bit as bad as we would have expected so far this year. All right, let's go to the Rams and the Giants. Alex, I think the market's getting a little too overexcited. And we're up to 6.5 on this game with the Rams. Tyrod Taylor starts for New York. If the Giants had played Taylor all last week, I think they win that game in Philadelphia on Christmas.
I agree.
And, there's a lot of weird factors in this game. You have the Rams traveling cross country on long rest. You have the Giants. All they had to do was take the short either bus or train ride from East Rutherford down to South Philly, down the I-95. So even though it was a Monday game, it's still easy travel for the Giants. But I don't think the market is valuing Tyrod Taylor right, because this opened when we didn't know the quarterback at 6. It did get bet down to as low as 4.5, which I think is right, closer to being right. Taylor's at least 3 points better than Tommy DeVito at this point, at least 3 to me. And then you could argue even that Taylor's better than Daniel Jones. I would be willing to hear that case. But at 6.5, that is out there, Alex, including right behind us. I think I'm just going to end up with a small piece of the Giants here. And then if the Rams run me out of the building, they run me out of the building. It just feels like too many points to be passing up here with Big Blue. I think this is a close game. I do think the Rams win, but I don't think it's easy for them.
I agree with you. I would have been all over the Rams, but now that Tyrod Taylor is in, that definitely steered me off of it. I think it is a big upgrade. Vinny always says defense travels, and I just don't know what to make of this Rams defense yet. I mean, they held the Saints to 22, gave up 20 to the Commanders in a game that never should have got there. Lost to the Ravens, gave up 31 to them, 19 to the Browns. So their whole success this year has been built around their offense and outscoring, and Matthew Stafford has done a fantastic job. Don't want to take anything away from that and his offensive weapons, but this one, like you said, traveling across country, I think it's too many points here with this Giants team who has not given up on the year by any means. They come out tough every single game. 4-1 ATS in their last 5. So I would only play the Giants here taking the points.
It's going to be fascinating to see from the Rams' perspective. Again, the people have been betting them in the futures market all week long to win the Super Bowl. And quite frankly, if they're in the playoffs, they're a scary team.
Absolutely.
I think they're. If you look at the NFC, and I know the Lions, the Eagles, and the Cowboys all are with 11 wins right now. And the Niners, yes, are with 11 wins, but the Niners are clearly head and shoulders above everyone else in the conference. The Rams are the one team that I think can really be the fly in the ointment here. And I know that's not a hot take, especially after seeing how they've been playing and how the market has played them in Super Bowl markets. They just have to get there. And I went through this with you before the show. This is not an easy path here for the Rams, where, yes, they're favored today, but if the Eagles and the Niners both win today, San Francisco has to win next week to make sure they get the 1 seed. And who do they play? Oh, and the game's in Santa Clara, the Rams. They're going to be over a touchdown favorite in that game at home against the Rams. You need help at that point. If you're LA, you need either Seattle to lose once, where we'll get to that game against Pittsburgh later. They're favored in that game. They're going to be favored next week in Arizona. Or you need the winner of tonight's Green Bay and Minnesota game to lose, which Green Bay hosts Chicago. If Green Bay wins is the shortest of road underdogs tonight and beats Chicago, Green Bay's in. They've been left for dead, but they would be in on a 3-game winning streak then a year. And then Minnesota, Detroit could have nothing to play for next week.
Right.
So they could sit their guys and Minnesota could sneak in. Look, if I'm NFC teams, I want the Rams the heck out of there. I really would. So it's not as clear cut that the Rams are definitely getting in here, even with splitting these last 2 games.
Well, that's another point you just made for this game here today. I mean, the Rams have the Niners on deck next. So I don't know if we say there's a look-ahead spot in the NFL, but we know that rivalry, and we know that that's a big game for them coming up.
Yeah, I'm not going to be willing to go that far. Like, you just have to beat who's in front of you at this point. Because if the Rams lose today, the Rams are, I don't want to call them toast, but they are fighting a huge uphill battle at that point to get in if it's 9-8. All right, Philly and Arizona, the Battle of the Birds up next. By the way, we're still in the early slate because there's 8 bajillion early slate games today. 12.5 on Philadelphia, total 48. Alex, it did touch 13 for about 10 minutes this morning. Still too much. The Eagles are not capable of beating anyone large right now. Just the way they're playing, they're not playing well. I know they won on Christmas, but they were fortunate to get out of there with a win against a Giant team that's really not any good. It's just a matter of, will the Arizona defense be able to hold up long enough in order to keep you in this game at 12.5? This actually might not be a bad in-game scenario.
Right.
Where if you get a big bloated number on Arizona at some point, I would come back with it. And if it loses, so be it. I don't think the Eagles are capable of beating anyone by 3 touchdowns. So maybe look for a big bloated number in the 20s on Arizona and come back with that in-game. That's probably the way I would play it.
So I do need to make a decision here, probably on our next break, if I'm jumping in on the Cardinals here. But I did tease the Eagles down to 4.5. We talked about that. I am a little concerned with Kyler Murray. He did practice yesterday, but he was out for 2 days with an illness. We've kind of seen that go through the league, and it hasn't been great for the guys that have actually come out and played on the Sunday. But you're right. I mean, the Cardinals, they play tough, and the Eagles should not be double-digit favorites right now with how they have been playing. I do think that they've been on prime time a lot this year, so we've kind of seen their struggles firsthand and maybe overreacted a little. So this could be a get-right game for the Eagles, but 12.5 is a lot of points with the dog.
Ton of points. You want more points? How about Washington and the Niners up next? Niners are 14.
Not enough.
Not enough. I didn't even have to ask you. Go ahead. Why not enough?
Well, Sam Howell, he started the year so good, and the last few games he has just not done anything impressive. If it was Heineke, no.
Well, Brissett. So
thank you. I'm wrong backup.
So just real quick on this real quick, because some people will be like, wait a second, wasn't Brissett named the starter earlier this week? Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Hamstring injury. He's officially out today. So Howell, the week he got benched, is right back in there as QB1, and Jake Fromm is the backup tonight for the Commanders. Again, so 14 with Howell, Alex. You can keep going. I just wanted to refresh everyone on that.
Well, I mean, we talked about him early in the season. He started great, but now his touchdown to interception ratio is 19-17, 8 interceptions in his last 5 games and just 2 touchdown passes. That's what you have to work with on the Washington side, as well as their defense, who we know is just falling apart down in the stretch. I didn't do anything, though. I didn't lay the points yet.
I'm in the camp here for 2 things.
Okay.
I think you can bet this game over. You can bet this game over because Sam Howell might score you points both ways. Might.
Yep.
I know it's ridiculous. Chris, by the way, when he was in here on Friday with the good old diminishing returns line, 18 was the number he made this on his power rating. Obviously couldn't come out with that.
Right.
It was way off from the market, but power ratings came stronger than even the 14 that's out there right now.
That might have been enough. I might have taken that.
So Sanford, I know it's a short week. I know it's cross-country travel, but this is such a horrible mismatch. And Washington with Howell. Now, the last 2 games, Washington lost by 2 last week to the Jets and 8 to the Rams. When Howell was in the game, they didn't look like an NFL offense in either of those games. All their scoring was when Jacoby Brissett came into the game. If Brissett plays and if Brissett were to play and were healthy in this game, I wouldn't touch this. I probably would actually be I would probably actually bet heavier on the over.
Yes.
Because Washington, I would think, be able to move the ball at least a little bit, and the Niners are going to be in the 30s. The Niners are scoring at least 35 in this game. I feel pretty good on it.
Well, that's their team total.
Yeah.
30.5 or 31.
Yeah, I think they're scoring 35. I like if you can get a 30.5, I think I would go over that actually on a Niner team total. But Alex, that's a lot of points, but I wouldn't take the dog. I can tell you that right now with 14 on this one.
And Kyle Shanahan, he's going back to Washington. That's where he started, was named offensive coordinator, and they're coming off a brutal loss to the Ravens, so they might want to make a statement here in this one.
Hey, we finally made it through the morning games. Let's go to the later games. Sean's Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at Seattle today. Up to 4 on this one, 41 to total. Seahawks the favorite. I think this is a very complicated game. Very complicated. Because the Seahawks, I mean, they were 1 non-touchdown drive away in 2 games from being totally done here. Very easily could be 6-9 right now. Fortunate to come back and have that 92-yard drive with Locke against Philadelphia. And then they did basically the same thing with Geno last week to Tennessee. 85-yard drive for the win in Nashville. Pittsburgh, I have no idea what they are. We're in week 17. I have no clue. I think they're bad, but they're here at 8-7, and if they win out, they're going to have a real shot to make the playoffs. Number feels right. I thought 3.5 was probably better. It'd probably be a take on the dog here at 4 if you made me bet it, but I don't know what to do with this, Alex.
I think you just summed it up perfect. I mean, the Seahawks, they haven't really put together a complete game this season, had a lot of luck go their way. But then I think I have to fade Mason Rudolph on the road. His first back-to-back wins. And now he goes to Seattle, which is not an easy place to play. So with his numbers last week, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Great game for Mason Rudolph. Geno looked rusty in that game against Tennessee, and he basically put up the same stats, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. So I'm going to go with Geno Smith here at home and getting it done. I laid the 3.5 with Seattle.
Let's take a break. When we get back, our guy Vinny Magliulo on his laptop for one last time in 2023. We only got a few games left on the card to look at anyway. We'll get what's going on behind the book next. Sports by the book here at South Point Studio.
South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome back in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White is here, and now joining us, a busy man who inevitably will get hugged by thousands today across the board.
That's
Our
right.
guy, Vinny Magliulo, is here.
Well, Jeff, Alex, Happy New Year to you, everybody here at South Point, all of our locals and visitors, and we've got a dilemma in the back, you know.
Oh, that's what do you got?
Well, and you both have been back there. We've got 10 early games today, 10 o'clocks. How are we going to accommodate TCM in the viewing back there?
So, what is the game that you're probably going to eliminate? Because we have 7 in here for what it's worth.
Being that the Bills are up to 15, yeah.
Ooh, so if I had one to eliminate today, if that was the option, I would just give it to Jacksonville to Carolina. I know that's a tight game. I know it's a game with a lot of movement.
Well, it's gone back and forth between 4 and 3.5.
Yeah,
so yeah,
you may not want to watch that game if it lands.
Although the
4.
Bills, and I was just with Chris Andrews, director here at South Point, and the Bills, the Rams, the Niners, and the Chiefs, all the big favorites are in a lot of parlays. Not just public parlays. I mean, these are pro parlays as well, and not just money line parlays.
Wow.
Points. Again, look, the Bills just went to 15, and that's a accumulation. So typically, a lot of times in the old days, I'll call it, early in our career. Yes, Jeff, before your time.
You said it.
You would not move numbers on parlays, but now, particularly with respected opinions, Sometimes you have to look at that and take it into consideration, especially in the case of the Chiefs trying to get ahead of what's going to be an accumulation going to it, even though that's an afternoon game. So kind of things rolling over to it. But nonetheless, we'll solve the TCM thing. Might have to have it on my phone and get an affair to remember with Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr this afternoon. You like that one, don't you, Jeff?
I didn't expect a Cary Grant mention today on the show. So good job. Very good job.
Thank you. There you go. Tradition reigns supreme.
Sean pointed out correctly, and this is this happens every once in a while. I mess up where I am on my screen, but I want to get back to Tampa, New Orleans, because that's been a toggler this week as well.
Yeah.
You're in Tampa 2.5. It was 3 earlier in the week. 42.5 on this one. You know, Vinny, this is Tampa wins today. This is a clincher.
They clinch.
They win today. They clinch.
They sweep the Saints and clinch. By the way, this is one of 3 togglers. We don't need a Ravens by 3 against the Dolphins. We don't need the Bears by 3 against the Falcons, and certainly don't need the Buccaneers by 3 against the Saints.
I'm going to set the over/under of one of those games landing 3.5. Juice on the over.
Yeah. You enjoy that, don't you? With a smile, you say it too. Yeah, that's it. Might as well just send 23 out on a high note. Attaboy.
Well, and then you isn't there one toggling with Pittsburgh and then you get Seattle by 4 and you have a great day.
Perfect.
Vinny.
You'll love that, don't you? Yeah, the ties win parlay card. That's all right. Listen, like I said, it's every day is Christmas here at the South Point. Why not?
Well, if 2 of those dogs that are getting 3 win outright and one of them lands on 3, that'll be pretty good for the book.
Yeah.
Right?
Listen, we kid around about it. I mean, it's a fact, but look, the thing about it is, if you're worried about it, then don't book it and get out of there. Go do something else.
Vinny,
right?
Vinny,
good
the property will be standing tomorrow.
We'll be fine.
It would be the fault of the people playing dice. It wasn't anyway.
I will say this: the lights will be on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
no matter what, here at South Point.
By the way, just throwing this out there.
Yeah.
If you're at the tables tonight, tip your dealers.
Oh, always.
Tip your dealers.
Take care of the dealers.
Tip your dealers.
You have to take care of the dealers.
Especially on a night like this.
Listen, dealers, valet parkers, waiters, waitresses, all service folks.
100%.
I mean, you rely on tips. I mean, and when I was dealing, it was minimum wage, which was
what 39 cents, Vinny.
Like, hey, take it easy now. Let's go. You know what? We did have color TV too back then. I came here early. I didn't come early in a covered wagon. I'll take it.
You weren't on the Oregon Trail.
So, no, I was not. No. I booked Oregon on my trails.
Oh, there we go. See, I knew you'd find a way to spin that correctly there.
But no, a great morning again. And you look, and as we were talking earlier in the week on Football Friday with Chris, and then yesterday, the 3 of us, teams playing at the same time that have impact each other's positioning or standings or making the playoffs or not. Again, years ago, it was a situation where we had to learn a painful lesson. We'd leave the afternoon games up, and all of a sudden you'd see these games flying and things like that. We don't, eventually just very quickly say, hey, listen, you have to take the afternoon games off because what happens in the morning impacts those.
So looking ahead to Week 18, since you bring that up, it's a little different now because you'll have the 2 Saturday games, which I feel fairly confident that Miami and Buffalo is going to be one of those Saturday games, just because
they could still flex too.
Well,
right?
so
next week,
ESPN
right?
has 2 Saturday games.
Yeah,
where they're both supposed to have playoff implications.
Mm-hmm.
Last year they had the AFC South title game, and they randomly had the Chiefs here in Vegas to clinch the 1 seed. And then, of course, you have Sunday night. So there's going to be 3 primetime games.
Yeah.
All those will have playoff implications. The one thing the league, and again, the league did a horrible job today with the way they split these games up, that there's 10 in the early instead of even just 9. So Vinny and Chris could have all the TVs functional back there.
Man.
But next week, and you bring that up, they do a better job of basically saying, all right, those 10 a.m. games out here, they're either going to be the meaningless East Coast games, or they're going to put the same division at the same time to basically play it out as, hey, we know the results going to the late window, so you don't have to do what you just said.
Well, yeah. Well, although the East Coast, right? I mean, the Eagles, they can't clinch today. They can't because of what happened in Dallas last night. So unless they move both.
They'll either both be at 1 East or 425.
Yeah. So, but all that said, today is going to have certainly sort things out. I think. What is it that mathematically? I think there's only 8 teams eliminated, and that's good for the league, and it's good for business, So, we've got a lot going on, a lot of quarterback issues, a lot of quarterback situations going on. Like I mentioned, the Bills game is up to 15. Texans. Getting some money this morning now, up to 5. Obviously, C.J. Stroud comes back, and Levis is going to play for the Titans. But the Texans up to 5. The Raiders Colts game is a pretty good two-way at 3.5. Jags down to 3.5. Beathard gets in, and some pretty interesting support for the Carolina Panthers, who have not won a road game yet this year. So. That's an interesting one there. Rams again getting support 6.5. I don't know if we'll quite get to 7. If it does get to 7, then I think that's obviously going to be a take. Not so sure though, being we've only got about 15 minutes. But again, it could take
big bet,
one
right?
bet. That's it. Niners through 14 up to 14.5, and wouldn't shock me if we see 15. On the Niners, and I know there's some 15s out there out of state for sure. So
yeah, in Nevada, it looks like you guys are one of 2 14.5s right now.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I want to get to Kansas City and Cincy before we let you get back, because that is another.
We're at 7. We went to 7. Yeah,
I mean, you had 8 earlier in the week.
Yeah,
there was even 6.5 for a little bit as well.
Took the Bengals early, but now. All Chiefs, as I mentioned, the Chiefs, one of those 4 pretty good favorites that are in every teaser for sure, and lots of parlays on the Chiefs today.
Is this the week? Is this the week the Chiefs figure it out and turn it
we
around?
might be dead by the time we wait for this team to put it together in 2023.
Well, offensively, you mean? Yeah,
well,
I mean defensively, defense has carried them really when you think about it.
Year for them,
exactly.
By all metrics, this is the best defense they've had in the Mahomes era.
Yes.
And their offense is horrible.
Yeah.
Especially by their standards. It's beyond that.
Absolutely nothing out of the running back position when you think about it. And
Pacheco's been fine,
but not in the last couple of weeks.
Well, he's been hurt.
I mean, but he came back last week. What they had less than I don't think they had 75 yards rushing against the Raiders, right? So they're not getting anything. Certainly, the wide receiver position has been inconsistent. It's been their Achilles all season. So, and then what's interesting too, the Vikings. This is a primetime game, right? The Packers and Vikings.
Yeah.
Vikings open 2, went down to pick, and now back. Vikings won. So Vikings money did show yesterday, and last night. And again, who knows what's going to happen with the Chargers and the Broncos? That game's all the way down to 3.5. Lots of support for the Chargers.
As we, Alex and I, kind of figured out before the show, the winner of the North game tonight is actually in pretty good playoff shape, even though they would technically be on the outside looking in going into the final week. But the way that the tie breaks break down, if Green Bay, especially if it's Green Bay winning tonight, if the Packers win tonight and then beat Chicago, Green Bay will be favored at home next week against the Bears. The Rams are going to be, 9.5, 10 at San Francisco with the Niners playing all their guys? because the Niners would be in a tie with Philadelphia, needing to win to hold on to the one seed.
The one seed, yeah.
So that's almost if Green Bay wins tonight, I'd almost give Green Bay the advantage to make the postseason at that point over the Rams.
Niners, Rams next week. Yeah, it'd probably be double digits.
10,
even though
right?
The Rams, I mean, you add home field, yeah, 10, probably start at 10, maybe even north of that.
And that's not an
11.
indictment of the Rams. That's just shows how good San Francisco is.
But again, San Francisco, by the way, some injuries for them too. More so, they had that 3-game losing streak where they had some critical issues, particularly Deebo Samuel, and they went 0-3. But now they've got some line injuries and defensive injuries too. So looking for them to get healthy. And the Rams, Rams are playing great. They've played terrific. They've only had one loss, I think, since their bye, Alex. So playing very good.
Now going to New York to take on Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor, who's
G-Man.
an upgrade from
definitely. Forget upgrade. He's the best quarterback on the roster, even when Jones is healthy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
But the line moved that way, and now it's moved right back up. Rams -6, -6.5. So
I would. Yeah, I think there's a lot more support this morning for the Rams, at least here, from what we're seeing, and definitely a belief in that offense in particular. And listen, the defense is not just about Aaron Donald anymore. They've got some.
That defense has held up a lot better than I would have expected.
I think that's been one of the surprise. The Rams are a bit of a surprise. I think, they didn't make the playoffs a year ago, but
they were bad.
They looked like on the downward trend. Maybe a cellar and everything, and again, kind of so early in the season. But again, since the bye, I think they've only lost one game, and it was that game with the crazy finish in Baltimore.
They very easily could have won that game. Very easily.
So
all I will say before we let you go back to work, Vinny, with the Rams, you have a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yes.
And you have a coach that, if he coaches long enough, could also go to camp. So, I think we all overreacted to last year where Matthew Stafford barely played because of injury. Now that Stafford hasn't missed a game this year, has missed one game,
right.
The loss to Green Bay, which, by the way, could end up keeping them out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're not the team 2 years ago, obviously, but they're still, no one wants to see them.
I will tell you this: maybe the best scouting staff in football. Don't forget when they put that Super Bowl team together, they had a lot of draft picks and they made trades and they got rid of a lot of draft picks.
Yep.
But when you look at, I got to tell you, the Rams, they're the masters of the 4, 5, and 6 round picks. I mean, they are, and that's a credit. Yeah, that's a credit to their. I think the running back too.
Kyron Williams.
Yeah, they're both 5th round picks, right?
Awesome, yeah.
And so there's a lot to be learned from that coaching staff and that scouting room.
Vinny, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody out there. Thanks for everybody for following us.
We'll see you tomorrow morning.
We'll do it. Yes, we'll see you in a little while.
Big day tomorrow,
as we say.
See you tomorrow morning.
All right.
College football playoff. Our
Back to
special
work.
Show tomorrow. Vinny Magliulo, everybody. All right. Before we get to the final 2 games, that you just get our 2 thoughts here, Alex, or final 3 games, I should say. We do have special programming tomorrow, 8:30 to 9:30 Pacific time, previewing all the bowl games, college football playoff semifinals as well. 8:30 to 9:30 tomorrow. Little gap between us and Race Day Las Vegas. Ralph will be here tomorrow on New Year's Day at 8 a.m. Early wake-up call for our guy Sean tomorrow as well. All right, Kansas City and Cincinnati up to 7 behind us. I have nothing here. I can't do anything with Kansas City until they show me they aren't a mediocre football team, which is what they've been now for all but maybe 2 weeks this season, 3 weeks. And they're 9-6 because they just found a way because of their defense. That offense is awful right now.
I completely agree. I think it would have been a take at the 6.5 with the Chiefs. Lay the 6.5 because feels like buying a little low on them. But on the other side, Jake Browning has been great for Cincinnati. He had one bad game. So I could also see the Bengals coming in and finding a way to win this game. So nothing for me just yet. I do agree. I saw 44 earlier in the week. I was thinking about that over, but now that it's at 45, I'll probably stay off of that as well.
Chargers and Broncos. Jarrett Stidham, welcome to the party. Second straight year Stidham is starting a Week 17 game. Remember last year, Stidham went punch for punch with Brock Purdy and the Niners in that wild game here in Vegas that the Niners won in overtime. Now, different set of circumstances. Denver's still in the mix. They went out. They have a chance to make the postseason. Russell Wilson, of course, benched this week. A lot of reasons for that swirling around. I think the easiest reason for that is that Sean Payton clearly could not stand him and could not stand his play. And this was finally the moment after losing on Christmas Eve to New England that they could say, all right, it's not totally egregious that we're doing this. By the way, I have no problem with the move from a football perspective. I know people have gone nuts with that. Russell Wilson has been terrible the last month. Been awful the last month. So I have no problem with that. Easton Stick for the Chargers, long rest. I think this is the classic case of the team having a letdown after having a big effort the week before. I know the Chargers lost, but they were huge underdogs, had a real shot to upset Buffalo last week. I think they fired everything they had into that game, and now I think they're going to get walloped. I like the Broncos. There's still some 3 out there. I'm okay with laying a little extra juice on that 3, even though it's not the best of it. I think the Broncos roll today. Jarrett Stidham gets the win, and they get the 500.
Easton Stick versus Jarrett Stidham. I can't believe we're saying that in this matchup, but I'm with you. I think the Broncos get it done. They are at home. The Chargers looked good, took advantage of the situation with the Bills traveling across the country, but I think this is the Broncos game. But yeah, you've had a little inside with Denver here and had an idea that we'd see Stidham eventually in this season. I thought he did good last year for the Raiders. So you think this is not a big drop-off between
I think it's less of
Wilson?
I think it's less of a drop-off than people think. That's all I'll say. I think it is a drop. Not a big drop, but it's to me, it's a 1.5. That's what I think. The market didn't treat it as that at first, obviously, with it all the way down to 3.5. But I think it's closer to 1.5 on that drop.
And Chargers were still missing all the pieces, right?
The Chargers are,
Allen
at this
and
point,
Palmer.
there's maybe 3 teams in the NFL that are worse than the Chargers in their current fashion with all those pieces out. All right, Sunday Night Football. Vikings are 1. I like the Packers. Jaron Hall is starting. I have no idea what we're getting out of him, but for me, I just think the Packers are better. And I know that defense was awful last week, and they very easily could have lost that game to Carolina. And they're coming off that horrible defensive performance against Tampa the week before that. But Minnesota's just finding ways to lose this year. It's the complete opposite of what we saw a year ago, where they found ways to win every single game. And now this year, they're just finding ways to lose close games. I think Green Bay wins a 1-score game here. And the Packers are on the outside looking in, technically going to Week 18, but would be in the driver's seat as a favorite against Chicago, with the Rams being a dog against the Niners Week 18.
I don't mind that at all. I didn't know what to do with this game with Jaron Hall, and the fact that Hawkinson is out for them. He won't have his big tight end to lean on here, but both teams have kind of been a disappointment down the stretch. The Vikings are 1-4 in their last 5 with that one win over the Raiders, that 3-0 here down the street. And then the Packers, they've lost a couple that they really should have had. So I think the line's right. It should be a pick'em game. So we'll see who shows up here.
See how it plays out. All right. That's all we got here for 2023. We're back next year. That's tomorrow, 8:30. I hate that joke so much that I just made. It shouldn't have even given me the fake laughter on that one, Sean. For Andrew and Sean in the back, for Alex White, I'm Jeff Parles. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. College football playoff preview. Some good ones tomorrow in the college football landscape. We'll see you again 8:30 tomorrow morning. Good luck on all your plays, everybody.